Hi there YouTube, Extreme Trains here. So in this video we're taking a look at a Thomas Wooden Railway 2022 reboot item. One that I think I've talked about on this channel very briefly before, but I certainly haven't reviewed because I haven't owned it. And it's this here. It is the track pack, currently the only track pack that's available. It's called the expansion Clackety-Track pack. But I mean, it's expansion from what? I suppose the sets that we've seen so far? Question mark. The reason I picked this up was twofold. Firstly, because it was 20% off, which was a relatively good discount. I've since seen it for Black Friday much cheaper on Amazon. But anyway, that's the joys of the beast. But secondly, because as I may have also talked about in previous videos, I set up my wooden railway underneath the Christmas tree as like the Christmas tree train. So I think it looks very classy in that way. And I was kind of thinking, as we've talked about in Thomas Wood, the track geometry was very limiting in Thomas Wood. So I picked this up to see if it can add some more options to my layout. But also I thought, well, might as well have a look at this review because apparently this comes with over 2.5 meters of track. But let's really see what we get from this set, and importantly whether it's worth the very hefty asking price for Thomas and Friends track. So what are we waiting for? Let's do it. Alright, here it is, the Thomas Wooden Railway Clackety-Track pack. So you can see again, the presentation of this is pretty darn good. I've talked about, I think, in some other videos that the presentation of these items is really something quite special. And again, this one also presents that well. You can see it doesn't have the opening thing like the engines, but it does have that consistent design. And this little picture of Thomas, which we all love to see. We've got this on the bottom. Again, a missed opportunity for them to have the little Thomas barcode there. Thomas and Friends. Colours and decorations may vary. Okay. Then we come down to the important part on the back, and you can see what we get, and it's actually relatively substantial, and this box is quite heavy. So we get 6 of the quote-unquote long straight tracks. We get 4 of these smaller ones, 2 of these little connector tracks, a whole set of converters to Thomas Wood. We get 6 curves, and then we get 4 switches, which I think is really nice, although they are just the basic small ones. They don't have the switching mechanism that used to be available in the old Thomas Wooden Railway line. Then we come down here, and you can see we get 2 of the ramps, one of the male-female connectors, and then also 2 buffer beams. So compared to the previous track pack which I've looked at, it's really good to see we're getting quite a lot of pieces, particularly the points that are mostly wood as compared to the previous ones. But we'll have to have a look and see how they all go together. And we come around to the side, we've got the picture of the range, which looks like not all of it, but anyway, subject to availability. Rest in pieces, the troublesome trucks, which are actually already missing from this, so maybe they're foreshadowing what is to come. Otherwise, that is what the box looks like. Let's crack this open and take a bit of a look at the parts and take a look at their quality. Alright, the box is very tightly packed. You can see we get quite a lot of pieces. The first ones we get here are the points. So you can see the connectors are plastic, but I'm not too concerned about that. I don't love this. This is not inspiring confidence in terms of the quality. Seems like that might be the only piece that's like that, but that's certainly not what I was hoping for in terms of a quality, quite premium toy. Each piece itself also is relatively light, but together they were quite heavy. But you can see that's kind of what our switches look like. Yep, that's fine. Ignoring the piece, it's a little bit how you doing. We've got the on ramps and off ramps. So you can see we've got the 2 of those. The 4 Thomas Wood connectors, and then also we've got our 2 small straight pieces. So we've got those there. These are new pieces. I've never seen these before in any Thomas and Friends line. These little buffers, so they fit on, I think. This is not a great example, but just like that. I don't hate it. It's certainly better than having nothing, but I would have preferred there to be some detailing on here because again, like it's just kind of detailed on the top, but it's not really clear what it's supposed to be. So I think if they put some detailing on here instead with some buffers, this could have been quite a nice little piece, but as it is, it's a bit weird. What is interesting though is it seems like, yes, you could. This is going to be a bit of a live experiment, but it seems like this piece you can connect like this. So that's interesting, and I quite like the idea of that because it allows you to create some really interesting sidings and you know, yards, for example. But again, all the more reason for it to have detailing here, buffers on each side, rather than this weird like brick paneling detailing. But anyway, that's aside. Interesting pieces nonetheless. You can see here we've got the curves, all important. And again, these are the small curves, so I haven't really seen any of the bigger ones. So these are quite tight. They're at 45 degrees each because you get 90 degrees in 2 of them. That is the same curvature that's on the switches. So if you just do this, you will get back to parallel track running. And then I think with this new geometry, it appears that that is how you get to having 2 parallel tracks. Interesting to see how that works when we're building the layout all together. So there are your curve pieces. Here are our other small straight pieces. So again, slightly longer than what I used to call the filler bits, is what I used to call, because I had the Brio equivalent of these. Again, you can see we've got the track with just nothing on the bottom. So it's like just a little bit more than, just less, sorry, than double 2 of these being one of these. So you get 4 of those. And then we get 6 of the classic, what I would call the classic straight tracks. And again, these are pretty standard, simple, very reminiscent of the previous tracks. We've got the little T printed on all of these, as well as the sleepers and the, you know, naked undersides, if you would like to call them that. So it seems like all of these have been done pretty well. There's that one set of points, which was a bit, how you doing? But what we're going to do now is I'm going to take these to another area of the house where I can actually have room to construct a layout. And we'll have a look at some layouts, because we actually do get a little instruction booklet here, color, which is always very nice. Shows you all the pieces, and it gives you some suggested track layouts, which I think is really good. And it shows you can build a full loop with this set and have all these different little bits coming off the side. We've got what looks like, you know, kind of the most boring layout here. I'm just gonna go through all of them. This one's quite interesting, I think, with the little loop and the sidings. And then we've got the standard marketing stuff. Again, no troublesome trucks. How interesting. And then we have a look and we get the sets, and we can see that we can build this layout. But otherwise, let's take a look and have a bit of a build. Okay, we are currently set up in my spare room, so I could assemble one of the, I think, the most interesting layouts in my view that you can create with this set. Now, I did say, yes, you can build a layout. It doesn't have enough curves to make it without using the points as curves, but I don't hate that idea. You can see here that this is using every single piece, so I've changed it very, very slightly from what is suggested on the packet, so we could use all of those track pieces. It's certainly much smaller than what it looks like on the box. When you hear 2 meters of track on the box, you think that's huge. And then, for example, you can see here's my reference, Thomas. It's really not that big. It's certainly not enough to go around a Christmas tree. That much is for sure. So I'll have to go into my Thomas Wood archives in order to get enough track to go around the tree. In terms of how it felt going together, relatively good. You know, reminded me of classic Thomas wooden railway tracks. Certainly feels much better than the way Thomas would. Those connectors were just, what a brain explosion that was. These little pieces have turned out to be quite useful because I changed the way that it said versus the instructions. I've just been able, the instructions want you to have it this way. I've just been able to flip this over and put it here. So I think these are very, very useful little buffer point pieces, but I just wish that they had some slightly better detailing. In terms of how the track plays, and particularly how the points play, I have had very little issues with Thomas when I've been, you know, pulling him along. You know, he just kind of runs along. If you guide him through the points, he will go through, and any Clarabelle will follow along without too many issues. So you can just see here, I'm just guiding them around as you would if you're playing with a push-along train set. So I think for the smaller engines, I'm not having any problems. If we just take Thomas off, and I've got Edward here, who's a good example because he's got lots of bogies happening. Edward is not quite as good. So if we come over, for example, to this little junction here, again, you know, on the straights, on the curves, not too bad, but trying to get him to go across the points can be a bit of a challenge. I really need to push him into the corner because of the tightness of the, you can see he kind of derailed going backwards. Because of the tightness of these points, you really need to be pushing the engine the way you want it to go. and it will kind of follow, but you do have a bit of resistance. Even this one, he wants to jump off the track at this end because it wasn't quite lined up properly. So I do think there's a risk, well, not a risk, but the downside of having such tight points and tight curves does mean that the larger engines which are in this range, which were not in previous versions of this toy line, have a little bit of difficulty in just coming around some of those corners. You can see again, you've got Edwards 10 to their derailing, which is less than ideal. So it's certainly not a bad track pack. It's certainly got some very, very useful pieces. You can see all these different sized, particularly all the different sized straights is great, but the actual volume of track you get is not that amazing. So let's do some quick comparisons and then we'll talk about value. So this is what you get when you pay, well, recommended retail price is 90 Australian dollars for this track expansion pack. That is the same recommended retail price as for the starter set, which I've reviewed previously on my channel, and the link will be in the description and probably on the screen now as well. And you can see that's how much track you got in that set. You also got, you didn't get 2 wagons, you get this is the Thomas from that set. You got that one little wagon and the little station thing. That is the same recommended retail price as this. So you certainly do get a lot more track for your money than you did with this little starter set. And as I think I talked about in that starter set, but certainly after picking this up, if someone was saying to me, oh, what should I do for a Thomas Wooden Railway gift? I would say you're much better off in terms of bang for your buck buying this set than buying, you know, Thomas and, you know, a wagon, well, troublesome truck, but, you know, they've been recalled. But, you know, I think, you know, if you're going to pay, you know, these engines again, they're about $20. Let's say you bought 2 of the $20 engines, Thomas and Percy, you would pay in Australia $130 for this. To me, is so much, you get so much more play value out of that than you would have got for the $90 that you would get with this set and the accompanying little bits and bobs. So I'm not really sure how they justify the price for this one, to be honest, because it's clearly a lot less track and a lot less stuff that you get. And when you put these together, it makes this look like great value. But paying $90 for this, I would not recommend this at full price. $90 is an obscene amount of money for some wood. Like, that's all this is. It's just some cut up pieces of wood and some plastic, which is even cheaper. So I got 20% off, so I think I paid $72 Australian, which I still think is too much. I think currently now on Amazon, this set is going for $60 Australian. I think that's getting into the realm of reasonableness for what you're actually paying for. You know, when they're charging you $30 for an engine, well, you know, you're getting a character, there's some detailing, there's a lot of paint. Of course, the camera doesn't want to focus on poor old Edward now. Yep. You know, you're getting a character, you're getting details and paint. It does a lot. And so I think the value proposition for track is a lot more hard to make out because it doesn't do anything. Once you build it, yes, it gives you options, but it just sits there. So I think that maybe from a material benefit or material perspective, this is how they justify $90. But certainly from what's going to make this product fly off the shelves, it's going to be a price that's more like that 60 to 70 Australian dollars in my view. And I would not recommend this item paying more than that, particularly if you've already got old track. Do not buy this just to get the track if you've already got existing track. I don't have that anymore, so that's why I purchased this set. Certainly, I would recommend this track pack with an engine as a much better present, for example, for a kid than buying them this set, because this set is very small, very limiting. You can't build anything else with it because it's so limited in the pieces that this is the only configuration of the parts in the set that actually creates a loop. This one, you get 3 different examples in the packaging, plus obviously you can go wild and do all kinds of crazy things if you've got anything else. So in short, certainly not a bad track pack. It's great to see we're getting some points and getting some interesting sized pieces versus Thomas Wood. But unfortunately, at full price, I just don't think I can recommend this one, especially if you've got other existing track. But excited to hear your views down in the comments below. I will upload a picture of the layout I end up building around the Christmas tree onto the community tab. So check that out if you're curious to see how this all goes when it's combined together. All right, as always, thanks for watching. That's all we've got time for. This is Extreme Trains.